thinking, I've already got too many people in my life already. I don't need anybody else. But loneliness is not about being alone. It's about feeling disconnected with the people who are already in your life. It's interesting that in this day of social media is so pervasive, so rampant today. But today there are more people who are more lonely than ever before, even with all of these tools of technology at our disposal. I saw a news article this past week that was really interesting. It's about people who are now, you may have heard about this, people are now resorting to AI companions online. Have you heard this? People, these are not real people. These are people who are created by artificial intelligence, but they look like real people and they talk like real people, but they're not. But that's how desperate people are for others to connect with in their lives. It's estimated that there are 60 million people in America today. 60 million people in America. That's 1 out of every 5 who are lonely. So you can just look down the pew and count 5, and at least one of those people are probably have some measure of loneliness in their lives. Somebody said one of the biggest diseases today is not cancer or heart disease, but it's the feeling of being unwanted and uncared for, of being deserted and alone. The truth is, God made us for each other. We were made for relationships. We talked about this past Wednesday night as we've been studying through Genesis. But when God created Adam and put him in the Garden of Eden, everything was perfect. It was all a perfect, unbroken paradise. There were no problems. There was no stress. Everything was perfect. The first thing that God said was not good was loneliness. Look at this verse, Genesis 2:18. Read it with me. It is not good for a man to be alone. So God looked at his creation, and every day he said it was good, it was good, it was good. But then he said it's not good for man to be alone. And so he created a companion for him. In 2 Timothy chapter 4, we have the last words of the Apostle Paul, the last written words of Paul on this earth. He was dying in prison in Rome. He's about to be executed for his faith. And all of his friends have left him inexplicably. He's all alone in a dark prison cell, and he's struggling mightily. He's not struggling with his faith. His faith is still as strong as ever, but he's struggling with loneliness. Paul was a people person. He loved being around others. That's why wherever he traveled, he took people with him. He needed others in his life. And he's struggling with loneliness. Here at the end of his life, there's nobody there to support him, nobody there to encourage him. And so today I want us to take these last words of the Apostle Paul and see if we can apply them to our lives today. If you feel lonely, or even if you don't feel lonely, loneliness comes and goes. Sometimes it comes and stays, sometimes it comes and goes. And so we all go through a period of loneliness at some point in our lives. So let's see how we can apply this. 4 causes of loneliness that we see here. One is transitions. Transitions, life is a series of transitions. The one constant in our lives is change. I'm learning that more and more as I grow older. You can't stop change in your life. It's going to happen. But and so it's the one constant in our lives. And because when you go through change, you're getting something new, but you're also losing something old in your life, and it's unsettling at times. You can think of when you graduated from school, or when you got a new job, or when you lost a job. You gain something new, but you lose something old and comfortable. Notice what Paul says at the end of his life. 2 Timothy 4, verse 6. My life is being given as an offering to God, and the time has come for me to leave this life. I fought the good fight. I finished the race. I have kept the faith. Do you sense Paul's loneliness there? The greatest Christian in the world. He had all of the faith in the world, but he needed somebody else there with him to support him, to encourage him. God created us with this need for other people. None of us are an island unto ourselves, but we all need a touch from another human being, a hug from time to time, a handshake, a word of encouragement. I read that 70% of people in nursing homes never get a visit. 70%. How sad is that? According to statistics, the most lonely people in the world are the elderly, the sick, and men in general. And Paul was all three of those. He was an elderly, sick man. And so that's exactly where Paul was when he wrote this. Transitions can cause loneliness, just dealing with all of these changes of the circumstances of our lives. And then there's separations. It's another cause of loneliness, when we're isolated from those that we love. Paul writes to Timothy, and twice he says, come see me. Come see me. 2 Timothy 4, beginning in verse 9, do your best to come to me quickly, Paul said. Get here before winter. Eubulus greets you, and so do Pudens and Linus and Claudius and all the brothers and sisters. In 2 Timothy 4, he lists 7 friends that he misses. Who are these people? They're his traveling companions. Paul was a people person, as I mentioned. He never traveled alone. He loved being around people, and now he's at the end of his life, and he's in prison in a foreign country, and for whatever reason, no one is there. Sometimes you can be lonely, even in a crowd. You ever eaten by yourself in a restaurant? You just feel kind of awkward, right? Everybody else is paired up and they're eating with other people, and you're sitting there at a table by yourself. You and all your friends, so to speak, and you're kind of, you can be distracted by your phone for a while, but you just feel kind of awkward being by yourself. You ever been in a foreign country and not speak the language? It's a very odd feeling. You feel very isolated. One reason that loneliness is such an epidemic today is that 1 out of every 4 Americans move every year. Think about that. 1 out of 4 move every year. We see that even here in South Shelby County. 34 years ago, I moved into a house on College Street here in town. And we lived there for 9 years, and within those 9 years, I think everybody on our block moved away, at least once. And so then we moved over onto Hickory Street. And within about 10 years, everybody on that block moved. They're way ahead of me here. I began to think, what have I done? What am I doing that everybody is moving away? And then, I began to realize this is the norm today. We live in a highly mobilized society. And people just move, no matter how offensive or unoffensive their neighbors may be. So what does this do? Well, it causes a sense of uprootedness. And people don't develop long-term relationships, maybe like they once did. You don't get to know your neighbor. People used to know your next door neighbor, your neighbor across the street. People used to, they didn't have air conditioning, they had a front porch. They'd sit out on the front porch in the cool of the evening. Somebody would walk by and you'd strike up a conversation. Well, people don't do that anymore. We don't even know who our neighbors are oftentimes. Notice what Paul says to Timothy here. He says, Timothy, come quickly. Come quickly. He's saying, I may not be around much longer, Timothy. I need you to come now. come as quickly as you can. I need you to